Okay, because nobody in here has the fear of rejection. You're afraid to express the feelings of needing to be loved, respected, validated, and understood. Well, don't we all have that? Most of us learn at an early age what feelings are acceptable and safe to express. You know that saying children should be seen, not heard? I grew up with that, but that never worked. I always lived out loud. I still live out loud. When we feel vulnerable, it's easier to express anger, not let anyone know that we are hurt, because anger in its own self is a great healthy emotion to have. But when you're using it, if it's a lot of anger, usually it's because we're covering up the hurt feelings, because we don't know how to say, you really hurt my feelings. Now I'm gonna punch you.
It feels so good.
A person living with the fear of rejection may be a people pleaser with internalized thoughts such as, I can never let you know who I am because I'm afraid you won't like me. Just don't say no to me because I will never say no to you. My fear will not let me. And I like this quote, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And that's very true. If you're a little child and you don't have the tools, then that's a whole different story. And most of us makes the absolute decisions in our, like I said, in our teens or in our childhood. And then it becomes buried in the subconscious mind and we rack them out for the rest of our lives. Okay? So who wants to talk about the fear of rejection?
That's one of my fears.
Bruce, did someone make you the judge?
Nope.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask you.
Not at all.
It's one of yours?
I knew it before I even took the test.
Oh, I'm sure you did, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we most all know. So, do you want to talk about it?
Sure. And why I'm in business development is beyond me, because I get rejected more
Well,
than
that's
I
part,
do.
yeah, but your business, you have the ability, you're a male essence, right? So you have the ability to be able to separate your emotions from what you do with a job, which requires a lot of your mental powers. And you don't have emotional ties to them. Your fear of rejection comes into more of your emotional ties to the people that you're involved with, okay? How you are very much in business might be very different than what you are like at home or with your family or family of origin or whatever, and your daughter. She actually is one of the ones that's helping you get over your rejection, feelings of rejection. So when, okay, let me go in here. That's tied to you making an absolute decision that you're not lovable. Remember when you did that?
Probably when I was a little girl.
You don't
I was
remember?
criticized a lot when I was from my parents.
But you made a decision you weren't lovable at a certain age. And then from there on, you were afraid to express anything you felt, as far as your emotions went, because you never trusted them. Sometimes you still don't. It's almost like there's a part of you in there that wants to come out and be very wild, but you're afraid that you'll be rejected or criticized. I mean, criticism is a rejection.
So I have a wild side.
Huh?
I have a wild side.
Yeah, you do have a wild side, yeah. We all do. But if you have a family culture that doesn't allow expression.
Right. I was, if I remember growing up in the 60s and 70s around the dinner table, and that's when everybody, the whole family sat and had dinner. And if we weren't allowed to have our own feelings or
Voice.
or voice about anything, and if it wasn't a regurgitation of what my parents said and thought, then it wasn't valid. And so I was quiet and just wouldn't say how I felt about it, because, and I saw that later on in life as an adult, sitting in meetings around conference room table, and I wouldn't voice my opinion because,
Afraid of being rejected.
Exactly.
But then you picked a career that's very verbal and very out there, and you have to be. So that's part of probably helping you come over that fear.
It has helped, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I do have valid things to say. So it has kind of helped me get over some of that.
Right, so then the only little piece that has to do now is your emotional relationships with people, overcoming that part in terms of your fear of rejection.
Right.
What part? The other piece to that is that you actually sometimes, can I go on?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you set up rejection to protect yourself.
Really?
I don't know if it's really or not, that's what I see. That's what I see. I mean, you have to take a look at that, how you set yourself up for rejection to protect yourself. It has more to do with your emotional relationships in your life. And that also traces back to feeling that it overwhelmed you when somebody actually loves you. It overwhelmed you. So be aware that you become overwhelmed with that kind of emotion, and then you set up the rejection to protect yourself from feeling overwhelmed.
Okay, I could see that.
Okay?
Yeah,
I love doing this stuff because something new always comes up.
yeah.
I mean that, who'd ever think of that? But we do it. It's subconscious, okay? So it's almost like you can't regulate those emotions in that way, so you protect yourself from it. So, because you're full of fear around it.
So how do I get out of that?
Well, first of all, acknowledging that it exists. Look at the emotions that overwhelm you and how you cope with them, okay? How you set up the rejection, rather saying, this is overwhelming right now, I need to step back. Okay? You can do that. When you become aware of that it's happening to you, you can take time out. If you can't talk it, you do it. Because that'll help you to regulate those emotions that are so overwhelming to you. You're so afraid they'll get you in trouble. So that has to be from a past life thing that it is out. No, that's the wild side.
I didn't kill anybody.
No. She
Maybe I
didn't
did.
tell you that yet.
Maybe I did. I don't know.
Let her think a moment here. Just kidding. No, but it's a very intricate way of shutting down. It's a very intricate way of protecting yourself. It's very complicated in that sense. And I try to make everything look very simple because it is simple. Just become very aware of when you become overwhelmed with any emotion, okay? Whether it's love, hate, business, whatever it is, any emotions that overwhelms you, if you become aware of it, then you can step back rather than setting up something to have yourself rejected. You like borrow time with the rejection, okay? And you don't need to do that. You just need to acknowledge that you're overwhelmed and then step back. Like if I get overwhelmed, I do nothing. Nothing. I decide I'm not doing anything. That's it, too much for me. And I step back and I wait until I'm not overwhelmed. And then it goes away, and now I have a better perspective on it, because I'm usually very compartmentalizing and I'm a planner. But every once in a while things just become too much. And if you realize that it's overwhelming, mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually, you just need to say, I'm overwhelmed and I need to step back. And that's going to help you break that cycle of setting up the rejection.
Kind of like what you told Barbara about telling people no.
Yes. Her borrowing the time so she can learn to say no, yes. Well, this is more, you have to become aware of how, do you become overwhelmed?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you do that, you subconsciously do something to set up the rejection. So when you become overwhelmed, just acknowledge it, then step back and don't do anything. That'll be really hard for you.
Because I'm a very reactive person.
Well, you can change that. You learned that. If you learned it, you can unlearn it. Standing back and saying you're overwhelmed is a response. It's not a reaction. That's a response. The reaction is setting up the rejection to give you time to get over being overwhelmed. That's a reaction, okay? But the response would be, I'm overwhelmed, I need to step back. And then give yourself time to look at that and not be so overwhelmed. Do the other, do nothing, then you're gonna react.